I'm 28 and planning my wedding to Liam, who's 30. We've been together for 4 years, and after a lot of consideration, we decided to get married this summer. The day is supposed to be everything I've dreamed of, a beautiful ceremony with just the right balance of love, joy, and personal meaning. I want it to be a perfect moment for us, an intimate exchange of vows without interruptions. But there's one problem that I can't avoid: my sister, Emma. She's 34 and has a severe case of Tourette's syndrome. I've always known her tics would cause disruptions, and I've watched her struggle through family events, graduations, and even small get-togethers. She's incredibly brave and open about it, but the reality is that her tics are not just involuntary movements or occasional sounds. They're often loud, repetitive vocalizations and jerky physical motions that can't be stopped, no matter how hard she tries. I love my sister, but I know, based on experience, that her tics can cause chaos in certain settings. The last time we were at a family reunion, she accidentally hit my cousin in the face with an elbow during a tic, and while it wasn't intentional, it's something I can't ignore. Her loud vocalizations can be very startling, especially in quiet, solemn moments. And I can't help but worry about how disruptive it might be during the wedding ceremony, where we'll be reading our vows. Liam, my fiancé, and I have discussed it at length. I've explained how much I want this ceremony to go smoothly, without any interruptions. The idea of our vows being drowned out by loud, unexpected sounds, or worse, someone being hurt by one of Emma's physical tics, fills me with anxiety. I've spent so long thinking about this day, visualizing how I want it to unfold, and I don't want anything to ruin it. I've made the decision not to invite Emma to the ceremony. It's a painful choice, and I know it's not going to sit well with her, but I think it's the best option for everyone involved. I've invited her to everything else: the rehearsal dinner, the reception, and the after-party, but I don't think it would be fair to ask her to sit through the ceremony when it could cause her distress and be upsetting to the other guests. I've tried explaining my reasoning to Emma, but she's heartbroken. She's upset and angry, accusing me of being a bridezilla and selfish. She insists I'm ashamed of her, but that's not the case. I've tried to explain that it's not about shame, it's about the environment. The ceremony is such a personal, intimate moment, and I don't want to be distracted by something I can't control. I don't want Liam to have to pause his vows to wait for Emma's tics to subside, and I certainly don't want my wedding day to be remembered for something beyond our vows. Still, she doesn't understand. She believes I'm rejecting her, and no matter what I say, she won't hear it. She keeps accusing me of being cruel, of trying to have a perfect day at her expense, and it stings. I love Emma, and I never wanted to hurt her, but this is my wedding day. It's the one day that's supposed to be about me and Liam. I'm torn. I'm filled with guilt every time I think about the pain this is causing Emma, but at the same time, I know I can't let my entire wedding be overshadowed by the fear of something going wrong. I can't stand the idea of constantly worrying about what might happen if she attends the ceremony, and the more I try to explain, the more I feel like I'm failing her. I've also had to consider my own needs. I have some form of autism, and I struggle with changes to routine and unexpected events. This doesn't help the anxiety I already feel about the ceremony. The thought of something going wrong, anything unexpected, like loud sounds or sudden movements, would be incredibly difficult for me to manage. Weddings are stressful to begin with, and I know I'll be on edge just trying to keep everything running smoothly. The added anxiety of wondering whether Emma's tics will disrupt the ceremony would only make it harder for me to focus on what's happening around me. At the same time, I don't want to be selfish. I know Emma has lived with Tourette's her whole life, and I don't want to make her feel like she doesn't belong. But this feels like an impossible situation. If I let her come, there's a very real chance it will cause both her and the guests more stress. If I ask her to stay away, she'll feel abandoned. And then there's my family. My dad is on my side, supporting my decision. He knows how much stress I'm under and agrees that it's not just about Emma, it's about protecting the integrity of the ceremony. My mom, on the other hand, thinks I'm being too harsh. She's always been the one to push for accommodating Emma's needs, and she can't seem to understand why I wouldn't do the same now. She insists that I should just accept the fact that Emma might disrupt things. But the thing is, I can't just accept that. This day is too important to me to risk it. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope. I don't want to hurt anyone, but at the same time, I have to make the decision that feels right for me. I'm being accused of being a bridezilla, but it feels more like I'm trying to protect my peace of mind. Why does trying to have the ceremony I've envisioned make me a villain? I'm starting to wonder if I'm wrong to feel this way. Maybe I should just accept that things won't go perfectly and let Emma be a part of everything, even if it means constant interruptions. But when I think about it, I can't imagine how I would cope. And Liam has been incredibly supportive, but I know this is stressing him out too. He wants this day to be perfect for both of us. So he's left it up to me to decide, but I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions, and no matter which way I go, someone is going to be upset. I've reached out to a few friends for advice. Some think I'm being too strict and that I should just let Emma come and deal with it as it comes. Others say I'm justified in wanting a peaceful ceremony, and that I shouldn't feel guilty for setting boundaries. I'm still struggling with this decision, but I know I have to make it soon. The wedding day is coming up, and the last thing I want is to keep arguing about it with my family. But the guilt is overwhelming. I need to find a way to resolve this, to make the best choice for everyone. I just don't know how. The more I try to explain my reasoning to Emma, the more I feel like I'm digging myself into a hole. It's not that I don't care about her, because I do. It's that I've been worrying about the wedding for months, planning every detail, and trying to picture the day unfolding just the way I want it. And the truth is, her presence at the ceremony could turn everything upside down. The thought of loud, sudden ticks interrupting our vows is causing me so much anxiety, but that's not the part that really stings. The part that hurts is the way my family is reacting to this. My dad is on my side, which is comforting, but my mom and my sister Claire are not. They've both sided with Emma, and now I feel like I'm stuck in the middle of a tug of war between my desire for a peaceful wedding and the guilt of excluding my sister. It's like I'm being pulled in opposite directions, and no matter what I do, someone is going to feel hurt. Mom keeps telling me that I'm being too harsh, that I should just let Emma come and deal with the potential disruptions. She says it's my responsibility as a sister to support Emma, no matter what. And I get that I really do. I know what it's like to have to adjust my life around someone else's needs. But the thing is, I've been doing that for years. Every family event, every holiday gathering, I've always made adjustments for Emma. I've always understood that her condition is a part of our reality. But this is different. This isn't just a regular family gathering, it's my wedding. It's the one day that's supposed to be about me and Liam, a celebration of our love and commitment to each other. And I'm struggling to accept that I might have to sacrifice my own peace of mind for the sake of someone else's comfort. Claire, my other sister, is somewhere in the middle. She understands where I'm coming from, but she's also sympathetic toward Emma. She says I should just let Emma be a part of the ceremony, even if it means tolerating some disruptions. She argues that Emma is an adult and should be given the chance to control her tics, but I'm not sure how realistic that is. Emma herself has admitted that holding back her tics is nearly impossible, like trying to stop a sneeze, but Claire just doesn't seem to get how much it could affect the rest of us. It's frustrating because I don't want to come off as selfish. I don't want to hurt Emma, but I can't ignore the potential consequences either. If Emma has a loud vocal tic in the middle of my vows, I'll be devastated. And what if she accidentally hurts someone with a physical tic? I can't be responsible for that, and neither can she. She says she can handle it, but I'm not convinced. There have been too many times when she's underestimated how bad things can get. Liam is trying his best to stay neutral, but I can see the stress in his eyes. He doesn't want to take sides, but he also knows how important this day is to me. He's supportive of my decision, but I can feel the weight of this conversation hanging over us. He said more than once that he wants this day to be about us, not about family drama. And I agree with him. But the tension is getting to both of us. I've tried to explain to my family that I'm autistic and struggle with unexpected events. They don't really get it. My mom especially keeps minimizing my feelings, saying it's just a wedding, just one day. But for me, it's so much more than that. It's about feeling in control, about having a day where I don't have to worry about managing everyone else's emotions and needs. It's about not being constantly on edge, waiting for something to go wrong. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but I'm already under so much pressure. Between planning the wedding and dealing with my own anxiety, I feel like I'm walking a tightrope. It's not just about Emma's tics, it's about my own inability to cope with what's going to happen on the day. I keep asking myself if I'm being unreasonable, if I'm just being overly controlling because of my autism, but the more I think about it, the more I feel that I'm making the right choice. The truth is, I'm scared. Scared that if I let Emma come to the ceremony, it will ruin the one day I've been dreaming of. And scared that if I don't let her, it will ruin our relationship forever. I can't seem to win, no matter what I do. The guilt is eating at me, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm making a mistake that I'll regret forever. But the worst part is knowing that no matter what, someone in my family is going to be hurt. I feel torn between my sister, my own needs, and Liam's support. I just want to make the right decision. But what if there isn't one? What if I've already lost? After talking to Emma again, I realize how deep this conflict goes. I've always felt like I've been the one making sacrifices for the family, and now it feels like I'm being asked to sacrifice my wedding day for the sake of Emma's needs. She's not the one getting married, and yet it feels like her condition is the elephant in the room, overshadowing every decision I make. And no matter how hard I try to explain my perspective, I'm not getting through to anyone. I've started to question myself. Am I being too rigid? Am I being selfish by putting my own needs first? I've been accused of being a bridezilla, but I don't feel like I'm asking for anything unreasonable. I just want to experience the ceremony without worrying about a sudden, loud vocal tick interrupting the vows or wondering if someone will get hurt, because Emma can't control her movements. But in the process, I've lost sight of how important this situation is for Emma too. She's hurting, and I'm failing to see it the way she does. During one of our conversations, Emma broke down. I think it finally hit her that she's not going to be at the wedding the way she envisioned. She kept asking why I didn't think she could handle it, why I couldn't just accept that she's a grown adult and capable of managing her tics. But how can I just accept that when every time I've seen her in a public setting, her tics have caused discomfort, embarrassment, or even pain for others? I know she doesn't mean it, and I know it's not her fault, but how can I ignore the very real risk of injury or disruption on my wedding day? I tried to explain again, but it felt like I was just talking in circles. She kept accusing me of not understanding her struggles, of thinking she's a burden on everyone around her. And I get it, I do. I've watched her fight for years, trying to live as normally as possible while dealing with something she can't control. But that doesn't change the fact that her tics are unpredictable. I'm not trying to be cruel. I just want my day to go smoothly. And right now, I don't see how that's possible with the potential for chaos lurking around the corner. Liam, bless him, has been a calming presence through all of this. He doesn't want to tell me what to do, but I can tell he's growing increasingly frustrated with the situation. He wants to be supportive of me, but he can't help but feel like this conflict is becoming bigger than it needs to be. He's told me over and over that this is our day, and we shouldn't have to live in fear of what could happen. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that Liam is being supportive of me, not Emma. I'm grateful, but I also feel guilty for putting him in the middle of all this. I've asked him to hold my hand through this whole process, but I know it's not fair to expect him to pick a side. This isn't his fight. The truth is, I've been trying to control everything. Every detail of the wedding has been planned with precision because it helps ease my anxiety. Having everything in order, having everything perfect, is my way of coping with the world around me. But the more I try to keep control, the more I alienate the people I love. My mom keeps pushing back, and I'm starting to feel like she's more loyal to Emma than to me. I never realized how much of a wedge this wedding was driving between us until now. I've always tried to be the good daughter, the good sister, the one who never complained, the one who always adjusted to make things work. But now, for the first time, I'm standing up for myself, and it feels like everyone is mad at me for it. I don't want to be seen as the bad guy. I don't want Emma to think I don't love her. But at the same time, I can't let this conflict completely derail what is supposed to be the happiest day of my life. At this point, I'm exhausted. I've spent weeks thinking about this, second-guessing every decision, and trying to balance everyone's needs with my own. But it's starting to feel like I'm losing control over everything: my family's feelings, my wedding plans, even my relationship with Emma. The more I try to explain, the more misunderstood I feel. I've come to a difficult realization. No matter what I decide, someone will be upset. If I let Emma come and there's an incident during the ceremony, I'll feel like I've failed her. If I don't let her come, I'll lose her trust. It's a lose-lose situation. But I need to make a choice, and I can't keep delaying it. The wedding is getting closer, and I can't let this decision hang over me any longer. So now I have to ask myself, what matters more? The potential for chaos and disappointment on my wedding day, or the risk of losing my sister in a way that may be permanent? I don't know the answer yet, but I'm running out of time. It was late one evening when Emma and I finally sat down to have what was supposed to be an open conversation. I'd tried to avoid it for as long as I could. Every time we spoke about the wedding, it felt like we were just circling the same arguments. But tonight, I knew it was time to confront everything head on, even if I was terrified of what would come out. Emma sat across from me, her arms folded tightly across her chest, her expression guarded. I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy, her face pale. But she wasn't saying anything, just waiting for me to speak first. I could feel the weight of the silence between us, like it was thick enough to choke me. I tried to steady my breath, to gather my thoughts, but the words felt tangled in my throat. Emma, I began, my voice soft. I know you're hurt, and I'm really sorry. I never wanted to make you feel like you weren't wanted at my wedding. That's not what this is about. She rolled her eyes and let out a sharp sigh. You don't get it, do you? You really don't. You've been making all these decisions, all these plans, and not once did you stop to think how they'd affect me, how I feel. I swallowed, trying to hold back the surge of emotions that threatened to spill out. I'm trying to explain, but you keep accusing me of things I'm not doing. I'm not ashamed of you. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to protect myself and Liam from a situation that could go wrong. I've seen what happens when you get upset, when the tics get out of control. It's not about being embarrassed. It's about the safety and peace of mind of everyone involved, including you. Safety? Emma's voice was dripping with sarcasm now. Are you seriously saying I'm a danger to people? That's the problem, right? You're ashamed that my tics might embarrass you. You can't even admit that to yourself. I felt my chest tighten. No, that's not it. It's not about embarrassment. It's about… I paused, my voice faltering. It's about the loud noises, the unexpected movements. I've been to events with you where you've hit people by accident. The last thing I want is for someone to get hurt on my wedding day. Emma's face twisted with hurt. So you think I can't control myself? You think I can't be trusted to manage it? I've worked so hard my whole life to control my tics, to live in a world that's not built for me. But I can't even be there for you on your day? That's what you're saying, right? That I'm just too much of a liability? Her words cut deep. They hurt more than I was ready for. I never said that, Emma. You're not a liability, but you can't expect me to ignore the reality of your tics, especially in a setting like this. Reality, she repeated, voice shaking with frustration. You know what? I get it. You've got your perfect little wedding all planned out, and you can't have any disruptions because it might ruin your perfect little moment. But what about me? What about how I feel? I was stunned into silence. She was right. I'd been so focused on my own stress and worries that I hadn't truly considered what this was doing to her. I'd been wrapped up in the idea that I was protecting the wedding, but in the process, I'd completely shut her out of the conversation. I didn't mean for you to feel left out, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to make you feel like you don't matter, but you have to understand, Emma. I can't go into the ceremony knowing that it might go off track. I've been planning this for so long, and I need it to be right. I need it to be something I can remember without worrying about what's going to happen next. She stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth, her fists clenched. You don't get it. You don't feel how it is to live with Tourette's. Every moment of my life, I've had to adjust to everyone else's comfort. I've been told to hold my tics in, to be quiet, to just fit in. And now, on the one day where I finally get to be part of something important to you, I'm being excluded because of something I can't control. I knew she was right. She had lived her whole life adjusting to others, to a world that didn't accommodate her. But I also knew that my wedding day was not just about her or anyone else. It was supposed to be about Liam and me, about us beginning our life together. But somehow, the idea of excluding her felt like I was betraying her, like I was making her feel unimportant and less than. I never wanted to make you feel like that, I said, my voice breaking. But it's not just about you, Emma. It's about the whole day. About making sure everyone feels comfortable and that no one gets hurt. I can't risk something going wrong. I can't. She stopped pacing, turning to face me. Her eyes were filled with tears, but her expression was hard, almost defiant. So that's it then? You're just going to shut me out? Pretend I'm not part of this family anymore because I'm inconvenient? Because it's easier to exclude me than to deal with the reality of who I am? My heart was breaking, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words I knew she needed to hear. The truth was, I wasn't sure what I was doing anymore. I didn't know if I was making the right choice, or if I was just letting my own fears take control of me. I don't know what to do, Emma, I admitted, my voice small. I really don't. I don't want to lose you, but I can't ignore my own feelings either. I feel like I'm being torn in two. There was a long silence. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe we both need to learn how to be more honest with each other, because I'm not the only one hurting here. And in that moment, I realized just how much I had been keeping from Emma and from myself. I had been so focused on the wedding, on what I needed, that I'd completely neglected what she needed. I couldn't change everything in an instant, but maybe it was time to stop trying to control it all and start listening to the people who mattered most. We still had a long way to go, but at least for now, I could start hearing her. After that conversation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. I'd been so sure of my decision, so convinced that keeping Emma away from the ceremony was the only way to protect my peace, but now I was questioning everything. The weight of the guilt was crushing. I wasn't sure if I had made the right choice, but I also wasn't sure if I could turn back at this point. I was tired of being torn between my own needs and everyone else's. The tension in my family was unbearable. My mom was upset with me, and I could tell that the way she looked at me had changed. It wasn't just disappointment, it was something deeper, a sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I ever expected. She kept bringing up how I was shutting out Emma, how the family had always made accommodations for Emma's needs, but I wasn't doing the same. Every time she said it, I felt like I was drowning. It wasn't that I didn't want to include Emma, but I had my limits. My wedding was supposed to be a day where I could just be, without worrying about everyone else's emotions. But that was the problem, wasn't it? My family had always catered to Emma. She was the center of attention, the one who needed special treatment, and no one seemed to notice that I'd spent years adjusting my life to make things easier for her. I'd never asked for accommodations for myself. My own needs had always taken a back seat. I was used to making space for Emma, used to putting her needs before my own, and now, for the first time, I was trying to put myself first. But it felt like my family didn't know how to handle that. I couldn't help but feel a sense of resentment toward my mom. She was always the one who stood by Emma, defending her when anyone else would get frustrated. I understood why Emma's condition was hard to deal with, and I had always felt sympathy for her. But I was starting to feel like no one ever gave me the space to be frustrated, to feel like I mattered too. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but at this point, I felt like I had no choice but to make the decision that was best for me. Claire, my younger sister, was caught in the middle. She agreed with me that I should have a peaceful ceremony, but she also thought I was being too rigid about it. She told me I should just let Emma attend the ceremony and see how it went. "What's the worst that could happen?" she asked. "If it gets too much, you can always take a break." But that wasn't the point. I couldn't plan my wedding with the constant worry that something might go wrong. The idea of dealing with a potential outburst during our vows, when I'd been picturing this moment for so long, filled me with dread. I knew the situation would stress Emma out too, and I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable either. But I couldn't just throw caution to the wind. Liam and I had talked about it for hours. He was incredibly patient with me, as always, but I could tell he was getting frustrated with the whole situation. He kept reminding me that this was our day, and it was important that we do what feels right for us. But as much as he was supportive, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was just waiting for me to make a decision, one way or another. He didn't want to be caught in the crossfire between me and my family. The last thing he wanted was for this issue to drag out any longer, but he knew how important it was for me to make the choice. I sat with myself for a while, trying to think through everything logically. I needed to let go of the guilt. I couldn't keep going back and forth. No one else could make this decision for me. And no matter how much it hurt, no matter how much it made my family upset, I needed to put myself and my needs first for once. But that didn't make it any easier. I thought about what it would be like if Emma were there at the ceremony. Would I constantly be worried about her? Would I be distracted by every tick, every sound? Or would I be able to enjoy the moment and let go of the fear? I didn't have the answer, and that uncertainty was making me second-guess everything. In the end, I knew I had to make a decision. But the choice wasn't about excluding Emma, it was about protecting my peace. The peace I needed to get through my wedding day without feeling like everything was spiraling out of control. I tried to remind myself that I had the right to feel this way, to set boundaries, to create a space where I felt safe and comfortable, but the guilt was still there, eating at me. I sent Emma a text later that night, saying I wanted to talk. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the best I could offer. I couldn't change the wedding plans at this point, but I wanted to find a way to be there for her in a way that didn't compromise my own peace. Maybe there was a compromise, even if it wasn't perfect. I could offer to have her watch the ceremony from the nursery room with a live feed. It wasn't ideal, but it was a step toward finding middle ground. When I called her the next morning, her voice was softer than it had been the night before. She didn't immediately yell or cry. Instead, she listened, and for the first time, we didn't argue. Maybe this wasn't the end of the story, but it felt like a beginning. I didn't have all the answers, and I knew I couldn't fix everything in one conversation. But we were talking, and that was a start. I hoped, at least, that she could understand my side a little more. This wasn't just about the wedding. It was about us, as sisters, finding a way to navigate a relationship that had always been complicated by things beyond our control. But it was a start, and that's all I could hope for. The days that followed the conversation with Emma were a blur. I kept replaying our discussion in my head, the hurt in her voice, the anger that had surfaced, and the pain I felt from her accusations. I'd always thought of myself as someone who could handle difficult situations, but this one was different. I was being forced to choose between my own happiness and my family's expectations. The weight of that decision sat heavy on me. Liam was a steady presence during this time, never once pushing me to make a choice. I wasn't ready for, but I knew it was eating at him too. We had been planning this wedding for months, and the last thing either of us wanted was for the event to be marred by family drama. I could see it in his eyes. He was exhausted by the constant back and forth, the tension that had grown between me and Emma, and the rift forming between me and my mother. The stress was beginning to wear us both down. My mom had tried to intervene a few times, calling me and sending texts, asking if I had reconsidered my decision about the ceremony. She would argue that I was being too harsh, that this day was about family, and I shouldn't be shutting out Emma. But each time she reached out, I felt more and more distant. It wasn't that I didn't understand her perspective, it was that, deep down, I knew she would never fully understand mine. She was so focused on keeping the peace, on making everyone happy, that she couldn't see the emotional toll. This was taking on me. The guilt, the anxiety, the fear of losing myself in the process of making others comfortable. It was overwhelming. The turning point came when I realized that, no matter how much I wanted to keep everyone happy, I could no longer avoid the reality of the situation. Emma wasn't the only one suffering. I was, too. I'd spent my whole life bending and adjusting to everyone else's needs, always walking on eggshells, always feeling like my needs were secondary to those around me. And this wedding, this was supposed to be mine, a day for me to express my love for Liam, to celebrate our future together. I couldn't let the specter of my family's expectations overshadow that. I talked to Liam one last time. He told me that he wanted me to do what would make me feel at peace, that he would support whatever decision I made, but he also didn't want to see me continue to sacrifice my own happiness for others. That was the moment I knew what I had to do. I had to stop trying to control everything, stop trying to make it perfect, and make a decision based on what was best for me and Liam, not what everyone else expected. I called Emma the next day. My heart was heavy, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. When she picked up, I could hear the hesitation in her voice, like she was bracing herself for another painful conversation. But this time, it wasn't going to be the same. I wasn't going to back down, and I wasn't going to apologize for putting my own needs first. Emma, I began, my voice firm but filled with emotion. I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about everything we've said, and everything I've been feeling, and I've come to a decision. There was a long pause before she spoke. What decision? I'm going to stick with my choice. You won't be at the ceremony, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. But I want you at everything else, the rehearsal dinner, the reception. I want you there for the celebration, just not the ceremony itself. Her silence felt like it stretched on forever. But finally, she spoke, her voice tight with emotion. So, that's it? I don't get to be part of it at all? No, that's not what I'm saying, I replied, my heart aching. You're still part of the family. I want you there, just not in the ceremony. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I need this day to be about Liam and me without distractions. It's about protecting both of us, about ensuring it's a day we can look back on and remember with love and peace. I hope you can understand that. I don't know if I can, she said softly, but I'll be there. I'll be there for you. I'm just really hurt right now." "I know," I said quietly, "and I'm sorry. I really am, but I can't keep compromising my own happiness." The conversation ended on a somber note, and I knew this wasn't the resolution Emma had hoped for. But at least I had been honest with her. At least I had told her how I felt, without sugarcoating it. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had made a decision that was truly mine. The fallout wasn't immediate, but it came. My mom called the next day, furious. She told me that I was being selfish, that I was tearing our family apart for the sake of a single day. She said Emma would never forgive me for this, and that it would cause irreparable damage to our relationship. But this time, I stood my ground. I told her that I loved Emma, but that I had to do what was best for me and Liam. The guilt I'd carried around for so long started to lift, little by little. The rest of the family wasn't happy either. I could tell they didn't fully understand, but I had made my choice. I wasn't going to keep apologizing for it. This wedding this day was mine to experience, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. As the wedding day drew closer, I felt a sense of peace slowly returning. There would be no more constant back and forth, no more second guessing. I was making the right decision for me and Liam, even if it wasn't what everyone else expected. And as for Emma, I hoped time would heal the hurt, but I knew it would take a while. I had to accept that not everyone would be happy with my decision, and that was okay. I had to trust that. In the end, things would work out. When the day finally arrived, I felt a calm that I hadn't expected. The ceremony was beautiful, peaceful, just as I had imagined it. And when I looked out into the crowd, surrounded by friends and family who truly understood and supported me, I knew I had made the right choice.